Открыт, я без проблем.
Но не
Подраться.
спускаясь в легкий вес.
Ну да, ради чего? У меня был пояс в легком весе, меня никто не побеждал в легком весе. Я просто оставил пояс и поднялся наверх. Ради чего? Ради пояса, мне это не интересно. И если он хочет подняться, то он не доказал в легком весе. У него там очень много работы. Тот же Арман Tsarukyan каждый день выставляет его, просит с ним подраться.
Islam Makhachev has just ruled out the possibility of facing Ilia Topuria at lightweight and is not interested in moving down. The welterweight champion advises the lightweight champion to first face the deserving contenders of his division before thinking about moving up. In a recent interview, Islam Makhachev shared his thoughts about his next fight and dismissed the idea of dropping back to lightweight for a fight with Ilia Topuria. He made it clear he feels his business in that division is finished and sees no incentive to return. Instead, Makhachev suggested the responsibility is on Topuria to move up, framing it as a low-risk move for him while reinforcing that he has nothing left to prove at lightweight.
Ну а теперь про ваших потенциальных соперников. Я понял, что вы в легкий вес возвращаться не собираетесь, но все же. Есть Илия Топурия.
Я открыт, я без проблем.
Но не
Подраться.
спускаясь в легкий вес.
Ну да, ради чего? У меня был пояс в легком весе, меня никто не побеждал в легком весе. Я просто оставил пояс и поднялся наверх. Ради чего? Ради пояса, мне это не интересно. И если он хочет подняться, то welcome.
А верите в то, что Илия может подняться еще на одну весовую категорию?
Он может подняться, потому что он тоже ничего не теряет, если поднимается. Он проиграет, вернется к себе в легкий вес, и все, там будет ощущать свой пояс.
Islam Makhachev suggested that Ilia Topuria should first establish himself at lightweight rather than chasing a fight with him. He made it clear he has no intention of returning to that division and pointed out that Ilia still has plenty to prove there. Makhachev also highlighted Arman Tsarukyan as a natural matchup, noting that Arman has been consistently calling for that fight and deserves the opportunity.
Но этот бой больше нужен Топурии, как вы сами считаете, чем вам?
100%. Я и так являлся чемпионом в легком весе, и я спускаться точно не буду. А ему, я повторюсь, что он ничего не теряет, если он поднимется. С моей стороны, это не будет правильным звать кого-то с меньшего веса, который только стал чемпионом. Он еще ничего не доказал в легком весе. У него там очень много работы. Тот же Арман Tsarukyan каждый день выставляет его, просит с ним подраться.
Moreover, Islam Makhachev admitted he was surprised by how easily he was able to control Jack Della Maddalena on the ground. He explained that after studying JDM's past fights, he was ready for the one escape Maddalena relies on. Once that option was shut down, Makhachev realized there was little resistance left, and from that moment on, he knew he could keep him pinned down for as long as he wanted.
Ну, знаете, мы изучали соперников, смотрели его бои. До меня он дрался с Белялом. И у Беляла тоже борцовские навыки. Он переводил его. Мандалена хорошо вставал после тейкдаунов. И вставал одним и тем же приемом, там такой переворот. И я его повалил, и смотрю, он пытается сделать этот же переворот. Но я уже был готов к этому и защищался. И я понял, что у него ничего другого нету кроме этого переворота. И про себя говорю, и это все, больше ты ничему не научился, больше у тебя нет других навыков, чтобы встать в стойку. И тогда я понял, что он там надолго.
On the other hand, Chael Sonnen weighed in on the matchup between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, noting the conventional thinking that Paddy would need to take Gaethje down to have a chance. While some might assume Gaethje has the edge if it stays standing, Sonnen suggested, it's not that simple. Looking at the sport more broadly, he implied that outcomes aren't always predictable based on those traditional assumptions.
Who wins between Justin Gaethje and Paddy the Baddy? There was a consensus that Paddy has to take Gaethje down, and that if you go back and you look over the history of Gaethje's career, people don't take him down. And meanwhile, the argument would be if it stays on his feet, it would go to Gaethje. Is it that straightforward? I don't think so. And based on what we've seen, I could see where you could come to that conclusion. I'm just sharing if you follow the sport as a whole, we don't really see that anymore.
Chael Sonnen also came out in support of Arman Tsarukyan, calling for recognition of his professionalism. He highlighted that Arman stepped up as a backup fighter, made weight, and was prepared to compete at a moment's notice. Sonnen stressed that this commitment deserves credit and forgiveness, sharing that he personally forgives Arman and hopes others will follow suit.
We see him weigh in 2 weeks as a backup fighter for UFC 324. What's his situation?
Can we please forgive him? Whatever he did to get himself in this weird purgatory, can we also remember that he agreed to be a backup fighter, that he did a training camp, that he flew out to Las Vegas, he went through the commission, he made weight, he was ready to go in on a moment's notice. You get something for that. I want him to get something. I want him recognized. I forgive Arman Tsarukyan. I want other people to forgive him.
Furthermore, Arman Tsarukyan predicted that he'd prefer Justin Gaethje to get past Paddy Pimblett, seeing Gaethje as a fighter willing to face him next. He suggested that if Paddy wins, he might try to avoid a fight with Arman, implying that Justin's mindset makes him a more straightforward opponent to face.
I want Justin to beat Paddy. Yeah, because that Justin, he's gonna fight with me, but Paddy, if Paddy wins, he's gonna try to avoid me trying not to fight me, because he's not man like Justin.
Paddy Pimblett questioned the hype around Arman Tsarukyan's grappling, suggesting it doesn't live up to its reputation. He said he wants the matchup to prove a point and quiet the talk, arguing that recent performances changed his view of Arman as a stylistic threat. Pimblett even hinted that after watching Arman closely, he now sees Ilia Topuria as the more dangerous opponent between the two.
He's an amazing fighter, though. How do you think you match up against him if you guys are to be matched up in the future?
I hope I eventually fight Arman, because I want to shut him up. He's a little idiot. I'd love to beat him up. Everyone thinks his grappling's unbelievable. I don't think it's that good at all. You know, if you can't submit Shara Bullet, lad, who's a striker who can't grapple, then I don't think your grappling's that good at all. Before he fought Dan Hooker, I thought that Arman may have been a tougher fight for me stylistically than Ilia. But after watching that fight, he's not. Ilia's a much tougher fight.
Arman Tsarukyan also questions Paddy Pimblett's grappling, suggesting he isn't as dangerous on the ground as his reputation implies. He argued that Paddy avoids testing himself against top-level competition, and recent observations only reinforced Arman's doubts about his effectiveness in that area.
I just want to say he has no grappling. He trains with bullshit guys. He never compete even the high level. He never compete in jiu-jitsu or grappling. I saw him. He had a fight, grappling fight, and he tapped or he lost. So he's a trash can in the grappling and the wrestling.
Paddy Pimblett fired back at Arman Tsarukyan, mocking his grappling credentials and questioning how effective he really is on the mat. He downplayed Arman's achievements outside MMA, emphasizing that his own focus is purely on fighting. The exchange turned hostile, with Paddy framing Arman's side pursuits as unnecessary risk and using it to stoke their growing rivalry.
He's been grappling a lot. I know you don't want to talk about him, but how do you feel about his, his grappling tournaments, Steve?
Lad, I heard he nearly got triangled by what's his name?
Shara Magomedov.
Yeah, he nearly got triangled by him, and he can't grapple to save his life either.
It's a tough
He's a
one.
striker, and he nearly got triangled by him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever got any interest of taking those sort of exhibition type things? You know, RAF have got this kind of like grappling thing. Is there ever been like a reach out for like a let's do a grappling match for Pimblett, or is that?
I don't know. Before I was in the UFC years ago, when I was coming back from an injury, I done Polaris one time against Stevie Ray. He caught me in a leg lock. That's like the only one I've done in the past 10 years or something like that. I used to do grappling competitions all the time when I was younger and stuff like that, but obviously I'm focused on fighting now. I don't, like, he can go off and do all these other things if he wants, lad, but hopefully he takes his neck doing them.
Okay.
On the flip side, Paddy Pimblett also pushed back on the recent controversy and criticism surrounding his comments about Dan Hooker, insisting his words were taken out of context. He made it clear he never intended any disrespect toward Hooker's family and felt the backlash was unfair. Pimblett contrasted the reaction to his remarks with what he described as a lack of outrage over comments made about his own personal loss, framing the situation as an example of how quickly narratives can shift in the MMA world.
I never said nothing bad about his mum. Mrs. Hooker's probably a lovely woman, and I never said a bad word about his mum, but then he goes on and says something about my dead mate who can't defend himself. It was a bit weird. I had my friends' family messaging me saying what's going on here and all that. So, like, the way people have went on about what I said, but no one condoned what he said, and said, "What are you doing?" Mentioning someone who's dead is very, very strange. But you know, that's the MMA world for you. No matter what I do, no matter what I say, people will make me look like the worst man alive, when I just used an analogy for how bad Dan Hooker's grappling is.
Paddy Pimblett fires back at Dan Hooker, arguing that the gap between them is wider than ever. He dismisses Hooker's recent run and makes it clear he sees himself operating on a higher level now, especially with a title in sight. Pimblett insists the controversy around his comments has been twisted, saying his remarks were never personal or about family, but purely about fighting ability. He flips the criticism back on Hooker, pointing out that lines were crossed in a far more serious way, and questions why he's the one being painted as the villain.
Dan Hooker's beneath me now, especially when I win this belt. He's 5-5 in his last 10. He's an absolute crab, you know what I mean? People are calling Michael Chandler washed, and Michael Chandler knocked him out in 2 minutes. So what's Dan Hooker? You don't mention dead people. And that's what Dan Hooker's done. Dan Hooker's mentioned a dead person and basically tried to say it was my fault he killed himself, saying that I'm not a good friend. Like, that's below the belt. What I said was nothing to do with his mum. Never said a bad word about his mum. What I said was an analogy for how bad his grappling is. And somehow, I'm the bad guy and I'm the one who's in the wrong when he's mentioned my dead friend.
Well, the story is that recently in an interview, Paddy Pimblett aimed at Dan Hooker's grappling that quickly escalated. What was intended as competitive banter ended up drawing widespread criticism, shifting attention from the fight itself to the comments he made. The moment ignited backlash and added a new layer of tension to an already heated rivalry.
And lad, people are saying like Justin Gage, he's older than that lad. He's 2 years older than Dan Hooker.
That's true.
Dan Hooker couldn't grapple a rapist off his ma. You know what I mean?
Okay, strong statements about Dan Hooker there.
Dan Hooker fired back at Paddy Pimblett, criticizing him for staying quiet in person and calling him fake behind the scenes. He said he felt blindsided by the comment going public, believing they had been on good terms. The situation grew even more tense when Hooker referenced Ricky, someone close to Paddy who passed away in 2022, adding an uncomfortable and controversial layer to the exchange.
No, he was number 7. You know, I don't actually give a fuck. I hate everyone ranked in front of me.
Yeah, I like it.
You know what I mean?
That's just, so you can like me then.
If you're behind me, great bloke.
Some swag
Great bloke,
you then.
great bloke, absolutely love it. Second you get above me, I'll fucking hate your guts. I hate that your head's attached to your body.
I like the style. I like the style.
So that's the whole story and the reason behind the ongoing beef between these two. Meanwhile, apart from Arman and Hooker, Paddy is also targeting Ilia Topuria, as he wants to face him for the lightweight title as soon as possible. However, despite the beef, Paddy Pimblett also acknowledges Ilia Topuria's success inside the cage, giving him credit for what he's achieved as a fighter. At the same time, he drew a clear line between respect for the resume and his opinion of the person, suggesting that despite the accomplishments, he doesn't view Topuria as genuine.
And he made it into an issue, it wasn't me. You know what I mean? He made it into an issue when he tried to jump me with like 10 other people when I was stood on my own. He's lucky that I was on my own that day, because if I would have been with my team, we would have battered them all. So it's all from that. And, you know, as a fighter, I respect him. I think what he's done's brilliant. Like, I'd love to do what he's done, and I'm planning on doing it. But as a person, I think he's fake, and I think I'm going to beat him up.
Paddy Pimblett also downplayed Ilia Topuria's physical presence, suggesting the size difference between them would be impossible to ignore. He stressed that weight classes exist for a reason and warned that if Ilia steps up to 155, he would be walking into a fight where the physical disadvantage could quickly become a problem.
Like with Ilia looks like.
Yeah, I think I beat him up as well. You know what I mean? Like, he's very small compared to me. You know what I mean? He's up to like here. He's not that wide. You've definitely seen that video of him and Pantoja stood next to each other and they look the same weight. So, like, there's weight classes for a reason. And if he wants to fight me at 155, it'll get seriously messy on his face.
On the other hand, Colby Covington took aim at Khamzat Chimaev, revisiting their previously discussed matchup and framing it as a favorable fight for himself. He suggested that Chimaev wouldn't be able to control him on the ground, which would force the fight into a striking exchange. Covington used that scenario to question Chimaev's comfort in stand-up battles, implying that getting hit is something he prefers to avoid.
That's what makes it so interesting, you know, you coming to the division. With a few wins, you and Khamzat, that could be a massive fight, right?
Yeah, you know, we were supposed to fight at welterweight in the past. You know, they were talking about making that fight happen. So I love that fight. I think it's a great fight for me. He's not going to take me down and hold me down. I'll get right up. You know, collegiate wrestling teaches you fight the hands, you know, look for underhooks, get right back to your feet. So he's not going to be holding me like he did his last fight with Drickus. It'll be a completely different fight. And then it's a striking fight. And I think he's scared to strike. I don't think he likes to strike people. He doesn't like to get hit in the face. So, you know, I love that fight. So the quickest path to get there is what I'm looking for. If it's Izzy, you know, Izzy would be a great stylistic matchup. And then, you know, whoever else is next, and then boom, let's do it, Khamzat.
Colby Covington also highlighted just how tough Khamzat Chimaev is to beat. He explained that stopping his takedowns or wearing him out on the feet would be a massive challenge, and anyone aiming to win would need elite wrestling, flawless sprawls, and near-perfect defensive skills. Covington stressed that without serious submission threats or top-tier takedown defense, Chimaev could dominate the division.
Do you see anybody in their top 10 that could beat Khamzat right now?
I mean, you know, you're going to have to be able to stop his takedowns, you know. You're going to have to be able to strike with him and stop his takedowns, get him tired in that department. So I don't know. I don't know if I do see anybody. I can't see the top contenders off my list off the top of my head right now, but, you know, obviously the most worthy contender is Nasruddin Imavov. That's the fight that needs to happen, and, you know, he needs to see if he can get through that test before we start talking about him being unbeatable. But, you know, I mean, to beat him, you're going to have to wrestle into him and defensively have insane sprawls and insane down blocking defense and stop his takedowns and make it a striking fight like Gilbert Burns did, or have such good jiu-jitsu and striking that you can counteract one another. But unless you threaten him with submissions or takedown defense, he's just going to be walking through that division.
Colby Covington targets Israel Adesanya as the matchup that makes the most sense for him as he looks toward middleweight. He framed it as a personal fight as much as a competitive one, pointing to past trash talk and making it clear he wants the chance to see if Adesanya can back it up inside the cage.
I think someone like Israel Adesanya, that's someone that intrigues me, a former champion, you know, like myself, you know, someone that generates hype, has a following, has a platform and a brand. So, you know, I think the Izzy fight makes a lot more sense than anything. And it's someone I don't really like. He's talked a lot about me in the past, so let's see if he can actually back that talk up.
Bo Nickel didn't mince words when discussing a potential matchup with Colby Covington. He framed it as a one-sided fight and positioned himself as the kind of test that would immediately expose Covington at middleweight. Nickel leaned into the spectacle of it, suggesting the stage couldn't be bigger and making it clear he sees the fight as a chance to make a statement on a global level.
I think we do it in the UFC in June, and I can just absolutely rip that guy apart and send him packing and end his career. So, you know, that's what I'm looking forward to doing, because I don't think that he would ever in a million years wrestle me. But as far as fighting, the UFC, I think, isn't super happy with him. So they'll probably, you know, there's a chance that they'll just make him fight me.
Wow. So you're saying White House card, you versus Colby. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as we were doing the press conference post event, he said that that he's coming up to middleweight. And so,
wow,
you know, all the wrestling people there asked him, said, "Why don't you fight Bo?" And he was like, I don't know. He's not on my level. It's like, all right, bro, I'm not on your level. I'm an easy check. So let's get in there and I'll embarrass you in front of the entire world.
Colby Covington slammed Bo Nickel, calling him out for avoiding a matchup with Yoel Romero. He didn't hold back, labeling Nickel a coward and mocking him for hesitating to wrestle someone significantly older and slightly over the weight limit, making it clear he sees the decision as embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just embarrassing. Bozo Nichols is a complete coward. He's a quitter. The fact that he didn't want to wrestle a guy who missed weight by a couple pounds, the guy's 17 years older than you. He's like almost 50 years old. Why are you worried about a guy that's almost 50 years old? You should want to do good business for the Real American Freestyle brand. Like, you pride yourself on being ready and wanting to be a company man, but you're not showing up for the company. That's 2 times in a row he's pulled out to wrestle Yoel Romero on the Real American Freestyle platform. So it's embarrassing, but it makes sense. We all know Bozo Nichols a quitter. The first time he had a little adversity in his fight career against, sorry, I want to apologize to Renner de Ritter here. I want to apologize because before I called him a Dutch kickboxer, I didn't know he's a grappler.
That's all we have from today's video, and we hope you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing MMA videos.